Now let's go ahead and refactor the clients module. So in here, open up main, Java, and then fraud, and then the client. Have a look. So this right here will no longer work because we're not using Eureka client. So we have to specify the actual URL. Now, because we want to be able to run the application either locally or Kubernetes, what we're going to do is to play with profiles. Now, inside of resources, what I want to do is right click, new, and then file, and this will be called application clients -default dot and then properties. Now, for what we are about to do, I tried to use a YAML file, but it didn't work. For some reason, it worked with properties, but not with YAML. But I will show you exactly what I mean in a second. So here, what we're going to do is define the configuration for how clients find their targets. So let's start with, so I'm going to say clients dot and then customer dot URL equals to, and this will be http colon / localhost colon and then 8080. So this is customer URL. Let's also define, so we're going to define all microservices, even though customer, I don't think we have a client for it. So let's define fraud. So fraud was on 8081. And then finally, this has to be notification. And there we go. Now let's duplicate this. I'm going to press Control C and then Control V. And here we're going to have clients dash and then cube. And then OK. And for how we connect to customer inside of Kubernetes, we're going to change this to HTTP and then customer. This to fraud and this to notification. Now you might be wondering why I'm not specifying, for example, column and then 80 and then 82, for example, right? And the same for fraud or customer. With Kubernetes, what we're going to do is for the service will listen on port 80, let's say for notification, and then it will forward to 8082. Therefore, this is the port that pods will need to talk to and not 8082, which means that we can get rid of all of this right here. And the cool thing about Kubernetes is that this right here, so it's not localhost or an IP address, but this is the service name. So notification, fraud, as well as customer. So in here, what I'm saying is, so this is the service and the port will be 80 and then the target will be 8080, which is for customer. In this one right here, the port for this service will be 80 and then the target for fraud will be 8081. And for notification, I think we don't need a service because notification talks to the RabbitMQ to pull messages. And to be honest, this is it. Now let's open up the clients. So both for fraud and notification. So here, let's just in here, we're going to basically, so if I press Control space, we can specify the name. This will be fraud, but more importantly, we can specify the URL, and the URL will come from the configuration file. So $ curly bracket and then clients dot and then fraud dot URL. Let's take this and do the same for notification, and there we go. And this should be notification. Now, in order for this to work, we need to open up. So let's open up customer, src main, and then customer application. And in here, I'm going to say at and then property sources. And inside, I'm going to say that I want to basically have the property source from the class path. So this will be class and then path. If I press Control space, you can see that we have client's default and client's cube. Now, the way that we're going to tackle this is by adding $ curly brackets and then say spring.profiles.active. So this will either be default or whatever profile that we are using. So if we're using default, it will use this properties file, or if it's using the cube profile, it's going to pick up this property file. Now in here, so I think this is where things didn't work for me when I tried this properties. So I tried YAML, so using YAML syntax, and it did not work for some reason. Now I'm not sure whether if it's YAML like that and that's why it wasn't working, but I tried YAML like this and it did not work. So let's just stick with properties, and if you manage to change this to a YAML and get things up and running correctly, please do give me a shout. But I just realized that, so here this should be clients dash. So clients dash, and this will be default or cube. So this right here, dot properties, which matches these two properties file. Now let's take this in here and let's add it to fraud. So fraud application, paste that in, and let's also add it to notification. Notification application, and then paste it in, and job done.